see all of you on a Saturday morning. Hopefully we'll have a great discussion. So I'm going to share with you something rather academic to discuss about the right to the city. So who has the right to Asia's world city? Very often we think that, well, you know, permanent residents, the court rules that the domestic helpers, they don't have a right to our city. Is that what we're going to decide? You know, this citizenship, this issue of whether you are a citizen and therefore you have the right to the city. All right. Now, the discussion about the right to the city, we have to refer to a French scholar, sociologist. His name is Henry Lefebvre. And he has this idea of city as an, I'm not French, so try to pronounce it as an English, you know. City as an oeuvre, right? So it's a piece of art. His idea is like this. The city as an oeuvre basically is a piece of art or music or literature. Now the way of thinking of city as a piece of art will be very different from when we look at a city. Very often we look at a city and ask this question, like I said, a world city. That's why we crown ourselves as Asia's world city. We think about whether it's competitive or not in the world economy, in the global economy. But if we look at city as a piece of art, then the definition of city is changed. He argues that the city and the urban space is therefore a creative product. And who create this city? The people who live in the city. The everyday life of citizens, in a sense, create this piece of art. We craft the city through day in and day out activities. So we can witness that, you know, under the Lion Rock, and we can see the transformation of Hong Kong over the past decades. This way of understanding the city is very different from the standard way of looking at world cities or Asia's world city. To quote from David Harvey, another very important urbanist, I'm going to cite a number of scholars. Sorry, this is university, so we're going to refer to some of the scholarly work. Basically, he also tried to argue along the way of Henry Lefebvre. He's trying to argue that we should have a right to shape the city because the city actually shapes us. And he cites Robert Park, although a lot of people criticize of Robert Park's ecological perspective of city development, but David Harvey actually citing Robert Park and argue that the right to shape the city after our heart's desire. That is his definition of the right to the city. Now, if we value the city as a piece of art, and that is created and recreated by our everyday activity, then we are talking about how we use the city on a daily basis and change its character and change the shape of it, the various aspects of it. So basically, the argument is that if that's the case, if we want to create the city as a piece of art and we want to do a good job, then the right to the city is to allow everyone to have this opportunity to participate in using the city and therefore endowing the city with something very special. Having our footprints, fingerprints into the experience. So basically, he's not talking about cities for exchange value. He's talking about cities to be for use, for people to use. Henry Lefebvre actually made a very good statement that I should have put it down, but because this morning it's very hectic, I forgot to add it. Basically, he argues that, well, when we look at a city, we look at its competitiveness, we think it's very valuable when we see, the central skyline, we think that is, valuable. But for Henry Lefebvre, his argument is that good human relationships, they are the true value of a place. Good human relationships are the true value of a place. So his argument is that the right to the city is like a cry and a demand. It can only be formulated as a transformed and renewed right to urban life. And Purcell tried to summarize his idea of the right to the city into 2 points. The first one is the right to appropriate urban space, the right to use our city. That is a very important right. The other is the right to participate in decision-making surrounding the production of space in our city. So if we buy into these ideas about the right to the city, right? Understanding city as a piece of art, if we ask this question, who has the right to Asia's world city? So we almost asking, so who are the artists? Who are the writers? Who are the musicians? Who's going to produce this urban space? So who has the right to appropriate urban space? Who has the right to make decisions regarding the production of space in these cities? Obviously, it should be those who live and inhabit the space, contributing to the everyday practices and uses, the rhythm, the color, the taste, the smell of the city. So those are the artists, those are the writers, and those are the musicians. So in a way, we are talking about reframing our thoughts when we talk about who has the right to the city. Because we are not just talking about citizenship, permanent residence, or whatever. They call it, try to pronounce it correctly, citizenship, city dweller rights, in a sense. The right to inhabit, the right to use. Just like David Harvey tried to argue. The right to the city, we use it as a working slogan, but at the same time, it's very idealistic. Maybe a lot of you are thinking, well, are you kidding me? Are we going to overturn the court's ruling, etc.? But that is a political ideal, to allow people who live in the city have the right to the city. So for David Harvey, his agenda is to have this control, this command on the whole urban process. Well, John Friedman, my mentor, he argues that the right to the city is to allow people to have active engagement and self-management of all the local organizations which society is constituted. The right to the city is a countervailing politics of resistance to the commodification of life. Again, it's trying to re-exert the importance of use value in cities over its exchange value. Another professor of mine, Peter Maris, he argues that the belief that economic relationships, like many other relationships, must be governed by the principles of justice and humanity as well. So John Friedman, my mentor, argued that we need to place the person as a source of moral values in the center of any action. And that is very important when we think about the right to the city. It's almost like arguing for the right for human flourishing. That's why we try to distribute the booklets and other booklets. If you are interested, you can get it. It's about that idea. How can we have the right to human flourishing? Waldron tried to argue that when we think about rights, we are actually thinking about 3 generations of rights. The first generation is the very traditional citizenship rights, political rights. We always want universal suffrage, that kind of political rights. But he argues that that is not enough. If you have the right to vote, but you don't have the right to live, that is no use. So his argument is that we need second generation rights, which are socioeconomic entitlements. A place to live, affordable housing, good public space, safe water, etc. And he also argued that we need the third generation rights. Remember, Henry Lafel's argued that good human relationship is the true value, and therefore we need the third generation solidarity rights for the people, for the groups, and for the community. Okay, This is a little bit complicated, and I may not have time to really go through this carefully. But if we really go into academic discussions about rights, Harvard tried to cover rights into 4 aspects, and I try to be very brief. So basically, you can divide rights into active rights. That means the rights that you can self-control, you can try to do it, privilege or power. And then passive rights. That means you need others to do something in order for you to enjoy that kind of rights. And that's including positive claim rights, the claim to basic needs, when you claim, try to claim basic needs, that means someone needs to provide you with those needs. Or negative immunity rights. Like if you want to immune from something, again, someone needs to make sure the environment is there for you to be immune from it. So the right to human flourishing as a corollary of the right to the city includes active and passive rights. For the privilege, we can say that for us, for ourselves, we can try to be always very positive, try to stay healthy physically and mentally, try to accumulate, social capital, meet with others. We try to have the power to go against adversity. So a lot of these things we can try ourselves, try harder, and maybe we can achieve those kind of rights. However, for the passive rights, the claim rights, you need the government, other organizations to provide them for you. For instance, basic needs. For instance, family-friendly environment. Or working environment, the right to do placemaking, that the regulation needs to allow you to do that, or building sustainable community, or this immunity rights to be displaced, removed from your homes, to lose your job in a sense, to be immune from unemployment, etc. Or like Iris May Young tried to argue that we should have the right to be immune from all kinds of oppression. All right, so I think Paul just mentioned about the 5 themes that we dictated over your needs in a sense because of the time constraints. We have these 5 themes which relates to a lot of discussions about right to the city. World city versus great city obviously is related to exchange value versus use value, whether city as a piece of art. Mainland integration definitely, this issue about citizenship versus citizenship. Use rights, decision-making rights, public space in the density is this right to placemaking. Are we creating space for human flourishing for that instance? Or speculative and affordable housing, obviously again, is related to basic needs as positive claim rights or immunity right from displacement, etc. And land hegemony, also exchange value, use value debates, and the right to nurture local community and local culture, and many more, as you can see. So basically what I've tried to lay out is that the right to the city is actually a broader, radical concept. It goes beyond the right to the city as citizens. We're talking about citizenship, city dweller rights in a sense. So I think this is an urban thinkers campus. I think we can think out of the box, out of this traditional understanding, and come up with something that perhaps will make Hong Kong moving towards a city that we need. Right? We're very humble. We're not asking for city we want, because city we want may be very different. But the city we need basically needs certain consensus. All right. So our urban studies students actually worked very hard to produce the booklet for everyone. So I don't think I can take you really through the whole booklet. But what they've tried to do, besides giving you a taste of the program, we have 2 urban thinkers sections together with lunchtime, as Paul has mentioned, that hopefully will have a very fruitful discussion. Peggy later on will invite the moderators to come out, but if you want to know us a little bit more, here is the introduction of the moderators of your section. They also provide some statistics because for discussing about Hong Kong, the city we need, we think that providing you with all these basic statistics and understanding may facilitate the discussion. So please, use them, and they try to tailor the statistics to the needs of the various urban thinkers sections. So please refer to them. They also work very hard to ask for copyright permission to reprint some of the articles that are related to individual urban thinkers section. So when you have time during coffee break or whatever, before you go into the section, maybe you can have a quick look. And they are good articles that help us to understand the various themes, including some written by our moderators. Okay. Okay, I think that's all. In view of time, I think it's better for me to hand over to Peggy again and introduce the third speaker.